coming up, we have two of the guys, sort of the Kobe and Shaquille of intelligent building design, Rob Murchison and Tom Shircliff from Intelligent Buildings. We've saved them for last. They're sort of our oracles of what's going on. How are you guys?
Hey there.
Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Pleasure. So, Rob and Tom, tell us a little bit about what's going on from your eyes at Realcomm 2012.
I think this year is exciting. I heard some other interviews earlier saying that we're no longer just trying to convince and advocate, but the market is really turning and things are really happening. Right. And you can see it in the attendance, and you can see it in the enthusiasm, and you can see it in the case studies, things that have actually already happened.
And I think as Jim said,
yeah,
as Jim said, the technology adoption life cycle, we are entering into the tornado.
Yeah.
And you can just feel the energy out here on the floor. I've had lots of people come up and say that same thing.
It is a very different, very exciting Realcomm. I mean, it's an exciting moment because you get the sense that we've all been saying for so long that this is possible, and not only possible, the right thing to do, not only ecologically, but economically, and something shifted. What do you think it is that made the difference?
I think there may have been a silver lining in the recession, because while everybody had these things on their mind and they had some information about it, it was really in some cases forcing them to really look at low-cost, high-value solutions, and that's what Realcomm's been talking about for a long time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of uncertainty when you're dealing with putting technology into a building to get a return, and if you can reduce the cost of implementing that technology low enough, then it doesn't matter how big the return is, it's still better than what the money you're spending, and the technologies are now in place to do that.
Do you think that Apple, I mean, it just seems like Apple has made a big difference here, that if it wasn't for these tablets that we're all walking around swiping, that some of this stuff wouldn't have happened, or do you think it would have happened regardless?
I think part of that is a user experience dimension.
Yeah.
So you realize that technology can be very easy, it can be very powerful and give you lots of information, and so why not in buildings? So I think that's part of the mindset that has creeped in.
Well, it's also changed the expectation of the, was it Bill Gates said 15, 20 years ago, the information at your fingertips?
Right.
Now the expectation is that you have information at your fingertips, and quite frankly, when you're dealing with buildings a lot of the time, you don't have that information at your fingertips, and there's a stronger and stronger desire to do so.
And Jim said this morning, location, data in real estate, and I think that's the frustrating thing. There's so much data in buildings, but it wasn't at your fingertips, and there's no good reason for that.
Now that we have this, surplus of data that we can do almost anything with, what are the smart builders, the smart real estate investors doing with it? From your standpoint, okay, so we have all these analytics. What to you is the way of converting it into something that matters?
Well, I mean, Rob preaches this a lot of the time. It's really making better decisions faster. Where should I spend the money? Where should I put the people, and how should I arrange my organization?
Yeah, it's definitely better decisions faster, and I think what you're going to see over time is that you hear the words data, and you hear the words information, and you hear the words knowledge. They're all used interchangeably, sort of like analytics is used as a generic term. Buildings have data. They're producing data right now. There's very much a lack of transforming that into information, and unless you transform it into information, you will not have knowledge.
And then the other keyword that we're hearing here time after time after time is you got your data, you've got your information, and then we got process.
Yep.
Practices. What's your take on best practice?
Well, best practice, in order for that to work, the customer knows their best practices internally better than anybody else. You have to get those ideas out of their heads, and that requires organizational alignment.
And that's a good point, because it's interesting how in the past, when it came to intelligent, smart, green buildings, for some reason owners and managers put that in a whole different category from otherwise running the business that they run, their current corporate goals, their financial goals, their sustainability goals, and really they're not separate. It's really leveraging technology and smart buildings to get up to your current business goals.
What are you advising your clients right now and your customers? What are you advocating? What's coming out of your camp?
It's all about the data.
Yeah. It's all about the data and having a strategy and a plan and the internal organizational alignment to do that. We heard a lot about that in the general session today, there's a lot of great technology here now,
Yeah.
and it's about organizing your organization, but also having a plan towards getting there.
What's the number one leverage move I could make if I was coming to you guys for advice and you were to say, you know what, yes, it's all about the data. Here's the checklist. Here's what we would say is the most important thing you could do to transform what you're doing.
Ironically enough, a lot of times when we're faced with that question, the first thing you have to do is define what their business goals are. And your business goals of retail are different than the business goals of commercial office, or different than the business goals of industrial. So defining the goals first, and then figuring out, okay, here's my goals. What data do I have in place to go measure where I am today?
And in order to do that, in terms of an organization, you've got to identify an authoritative champion, because there are a lot of companies that have groups that are out learning things, and they're all disparate groups, and there's not that roll-up authoritative champion to actually make change. Education's fantastic in the first step, but you got to have a way to do it inside of your company.
Interesting. And obviously, you know, you guys are an authoritative champion in a sense. Where can we, if we were to extrapolate into the future, what could we see happening in the next 5 years, 10 years? I know that's a kind of crazy question, but we're here on the cutting edge. What are you looking for and hoping will happen?
Every building is going to be able to have a two-way conversation. Today, there's not a two-way conversation between the occupants of the building and the building itself. It's the building is trying to talk, but it can't because the proper technology is not in place. We're going to see worlds where scenarios where the buildings are actually communicating not only with the occupants but the property managers, the owners of the buildings, and those two-way conversations, just like a two-way conversation with your spouse, are going to turn into better communications and better relationships, and reducing operating costs, better tenant experience, etc.
And that two-way conversation will also extend to the grid as well.
Wow, it's pretty exciting stuff, and it's amazing that the technology is actually going to open up something that seems so hard. Yeah.
But technology is not going to do it by itself. To your point earlier,
Yeah.
processes, mainly people, you have to have the balance of the technology and the people in order to achieve the outcome that you needed.
If people want to interface with you a little bit further about this, where can they reach out to you guys?
Intelligentbuildings.com
Very
is our address.
And where are you guys on the floor?
We're all around.
We're all over the place.
Rob, Tom, thank you
Great
guys
to see
so
you, sure.
much. Great stuff.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. See you
Thanks
guys later.
again.
Thanks.
Sure. Bye-bye.
All right.